Something that I think is concerning me a little bit. So over the past week, Colin Trevorrow left Star Wars Episode 9, or he was asked to leave Star Wars Episode 9 by Kathleen Kennedy.
The boss.
I mean, yeah, she's the big swinging dick at the Cracker Factory, dude. Like
That's for sure.
she just makes all the power moves. You know, Colin Trevorrow, he directed or co-directed Jurassic World, right?
He directed it, yeah.
Directed it.
It was his second film. He was kind of the poster child for all the young indie director, good indie film. Let's give him a franchise, like your Josh Tranks,
right?
Gareth Edwards. But he was like, literally like he had one other movie, and then he
right.
did Jurassic World.
But this is the second time this year, within 3 months, that a director was taken off a major Star Wars movie. I mean, Ron Howard replaced Lord and Miller for the Han Solo movie.
We don't have it filming yet, though. This is only in pre-production,
right? Which is much better that they're doing it now than,
right?
When you're pretty much almost in post-production with the Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts around another Star Wars director being booted out?
Right. So yeah, there's a lot as usual. There's a lot to dig in with this. So this was in pre-production, right? So they had their time to make their call. As we've kind of known with the Force Awakens had a rewrite. They wanted to make sure they got that right. Gareth Edwards was pulled off the end of Rogue One, so Tony Gilroy could come in, and do the big boy reshoots. Lord and Miller was replaced over their ways of conducting the shoot, among other things, replaced with Ron Howard, a seasoned Academy Award-winning director. Rian Johnson, this is like his, very experienced guy, Breaking Bad's got like 4 other movies, traditionalist, no problems on set at all for The Last Jedi, which comes out this year, which is good to hear. So given that, and Josh Trank was pulled off of an untitled spinoff very early on. So there's been a lot of activity, right? So apparently this came up, over rewrites with the script. I mean, obviously they know what's going to happen. Episode 9 is just an out of the script. They've had this outline. They know how they want to end the trilogy. And I think that's kind of the source of it is Kathleen Kennedy, who's, she has the final say over at Lucasfilm. She wants her and everyone that works for her, they want this movie to come out a certain way. This is the trilogy capper. This is the one sending off the legacy characters. Luke Skywalker assumingly will be in Episode 9. Carrie Fisher was supposed to have a really big role in Episode 9 before her untimely passing. So, that other note, making sure you handle Carrie Fisher's death is important. But also, they're not going to take any risks with the legacy characters. And I think that's probably the source of the issue is they want this to, you can say they want it to be safe, but at the same time, this is the most powerful brand in the history of, humanity. This is the most powerful IP, most popular IP, the highest grossing IP, whatever you want to say, it is the most powerful franchise there is. When you're using the most popular characters for your legacy characters, you're so connected to the original movies that are so beloved, you can't fuck it up, And everyone's like, oh, well, they don't want to take risks. They just want to tell directors what to do. Yeah, no fucking kidding. These are movies that make like $1.5 billion every time. And they're so popular. I understand. Now, if we get farther along with Star Wars, and let's be real, this shit ain't going to go away after the, all the announced movies. If we get farther away from the original trilogy, farther away from, Luke and Han, and if there's still a really heavy hand about how stuff is done, yeah, I can understand, cause for concern. But at the same time, a guy like Colin Trevorrow, who apparently is kind of a cocky guy, if you're going to be a cocky guy and like putting your dick on the table in front of Kathleen Kennedy, telling her how you want to end the movie after your art house passion project, The Book of Henry, was probably the most critically panned movie of the year, that also made like $2 million. It doesn't seem like a good match anymore, does it? And he almost sounded like a bad fit anyway, because he did for Jurassic Park with Jurassic World what JJ did for Star Wars. He rejuvenated the franchise, but we have nothing to go off of to expect he'd be able to end the franchise, even if he was getting a lot of direction. So I'm totally fine with it. I hope they keep Rian Johnson, or maybe like a similar guy like a Ron Howard, like maybe a Robert Zemeckis, someone in the Spielberg school. But yeah, those are my thoughts. How do you feel?
Well, I feel a little bit concerned. I don't know if I feel concerned necessarily about the franchise, but just that this is becoming a pattern, I think is something that isn't necessarily good. Like, this is like a really like off topic example, but so like the Boston Bruins, right? They're about to like lose their next young stud but they just won't pay him, and it's like, I was talking to my dad about it, and what he says is, if good riddance if they don't want to sign a reasonable contract, whatever. I was like, no, because eventually no young people are going to want to play for the Bruins, so they just won't pay them. Like, you need to like eventually like make a commitment to something and stick with it, because what director is going to want to jump on? Now, granted, the Boston Bruins are not Star Wars, like you said, the greatest IP of all time, and something that can make your career if you do it right. I do think the really positive thing is that they seem to have found directors that they feel like they can really work with to put the franchise in the direction they want it to go. So I don't see this being a problem that will continue to happen. I think what they'll end up doing is using those like side movies, like
The
Rogue
spin-offs,
One,
the anthologies,
Han Solo, as like the art movies in a way. Let people be creative, tell the stories in a certain way. Obviously, Lord and Miller was a little different because they were fucking with a character who's like one of the most beloved characters of all time. But I think as they get a little further away, they can let people like, I don't know, like Django, not Django,
Django Fett.
Django Fett, yeah, Bubba Fett. Like that movie can be a little bit darker or a little bit grittier, artsy,
Yeah, exactly.
So I think now that they have Rian Johnson, I don't see why they wouldn't just be like, dude, like everybody loves you for episode 8, take the keys to 9, and like even further after that. Like if he wants to keep making movies, he's a great director.
Yeah, exactly. And he's let on that he would love to do it again. He's had no complaints at all, and he already is privy to how the story goes. So he seems like a perfect fit to just, wrap up the trilogy at the very least. But yeah, I think what you said is right, because like, part of the thing with Lord and Miller, and probably with Trevorrow too, because he's so inexperienced, is that Lucasfilm has such high standards, not just for like the details of the story, like the treatment. It's just they want these shoots to be done a certain way because there's so much on the line.
Right.
So when they heard that Lord and Miller was doing a million shots of the same shot and doing too much improv, they should have fucking known from the start that's how they made movies. But it was clearly just not a good match, especially like for using the character of Han Solo. Just wait, it's too much riding on it.
Right.
So, and a lot of the doom and gloom people be like, oh, Kathleen Kennedy, it's her way to the higher. It's like, yes, no director's bigger than the franchise, especially this franchise. Marvel's the same way, and so is DC. A lot of people like to say that DC is better and that they give people more chances. We haven't seen enough to truly know that yet. But again, there's a lot riding on these, and Warner Brothers cares about their money just as much as fucking Disney does. So, again, down the line, if there's still a really heavy hand about stuff when it's farther removed from the main story, I understand. But in Rogue One, even with the reshoots, everybody fucking dies in Rogue One. I thought that was very different, and that's why I loved it so much. So, again, let's see how Episode 8 does. There's nothing negative about it at all. So I think, moving forward, we know so much information so far in advance about movies these days that we have our takes, then we get new information, we make new takes, and not enough things happen. We have to let things happen. So in the meantime, I'm not worried.
No, me neither. Something